Hi, my name is Shanda Rule. I'm a singer, storyteller, joy spreader, and host of the Courageous Voice podcast. The Courageous Voice podcast gathers and shares stories from artistic folks around the world and their journeys through fear, courageousness, and creativity. Join us and get inspired with me as we chat about learning to befriend and walk with and past our fears to share our voices courageously with the world. Hello and welcome back to the Courageous Voice podcast. My name is Shanda Rule and I am so honored to welcome our guest today. We have Jen Aks in the house. Hello and welcome.
Hi, I'm so happy. When you said that, I was like, raise the roof. So happy to be here. So happy to be here. Love being in the space with you.
Oh my God, thank you. Thank you so much. Y'all, Jen, she's a mother, she's a dancer, she's a performance artist, an educator. She's an embodiment coach who leads folks in an empowerment practice through movement and gesture that shares their stories and facilitates inner healing. It's called the power of gesture. And I want to talk about it. I want to talk about that and so many things.
I just love the way you described that.
Wonderful. So I was on your website earlier and I was so intrigued about your story and how you are weaving all these different things about yourself from your personal life, your professional lives into creating this, which you're calling your life work. So tell us about the power of gesture and how you decided to start creating this. I mean, I know that you've probably been creating it for a while, but how it is coming together.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for asking. I am incredibly passionate about this work, because it really comes from deep within my soul. Um, it wasn't planned, it just kind of evolved, which I have found to be so incredibly beautiful. So I'll just go back for a couple minutes and tell you how I kind of got here.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I've been a dancer my entire life. Ever since I was a kid, always dancing, went to school for dance, taught dance, performed, the whole thing. Um, but when I was younger and I first found movement, it really, really, really saved my life. I was struggling when I was little. I struggled in school. I struggled with my voice, just articulating. It was very hard for me sometimes to kind of be in community with people. I just didn't feel like I had the right words. And so there was a lot of insecurity and some shame and all this stuff that kind of really built up through the years. And then in my teenage years, when I found dance and movement, that's when I was like, oh, I really connected my mind, body, soul. And I was like, oh, okay, words aren't everything. I can
Mm.
use movement to communicate with the world. And movement and dance really gave me confidence. It gave me strength, and it really locked me into who I am as a person. So I've always been in such gratitude for dance because it helped my mental health, it helped my well-being, it helped me find balance, and just really grounded me into the life that I'm supposed to lead. And so later in life, I started working for National Dance Institute, which was all about kinetic learning, and it was all about kinetic connection and mind, body, soul learning and deep understanding to curriculum and the arts and poetry, just all of it. So I started working with this nonprofit, and it really just spoke to me because it's really what I needed when I was younger. So the movement part of connecting to the world through education and connection was really a beautiful thing. So when the pandemic hit, I was like, I want to create a practice, an accessible practice for people, whether they're dancers or non-dancers. It doesn't matter. Dance gave me the confidence. That was the tool that supported me. But at the end of the day, it was a movement practice. So I just wanted to create an accessible movement practice that anyone could do, whether you're limited in your mobility or whether you're in full mobility,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't matter the size of you or the background of you, right? I just wanted everyone to have an opportunity to move. And how can we do that in an accessible way that
Mm-hmm.
everyone can connect to. So gestures, needing just your hands, right? So I created the power of gesture as a way for people, especially during the pandemic, to connect to their emotions and heal and move the emotion through their body, because as we know, with like somatic healing and wellness and all of that, it can really be incredibly transformative. So that's what I have found. And as you know, because we work together, I
Mm-hmm.
started working with women only. And it was just like, I want to see if this works. And I did 150 of those incredible stories using the power of
Wow.
gesture. Yes, to help women access their stories, access their trauma, access the things that they want to heal, and instead of feeling ashamed of, feel empowered by. So I used this practice. This is what sat at the heart of all of these stories. And so you, along with 149 other women, really helped me understand the power of gesture, and that this is actually a very deep healing, empowering, mindset shifting, somatic process that works. So then I started working with teenagers. And so
Hmm.
now I work with a lot of different people, because it's accessible for so
Mm-hmm.
many. So
Mm-hmm.
now here I am doing the power of gesture in workshops and one-on-ones, and it's really, really beautiful.
Yeah. I'm so curious about why this works. I mean, I did
Yeah,
do this practice. It was beautiful, and for someone who is so movement shy as I am, it was very transformative. I watched your video that you did, and I think that there is a lot to the power of gesture, but I also think that where you started and how vulnerable this practice is for you and how you've been open about your journey of finding acceptance. That was the title of your story. You also talk
right.
about that in your bio about self-worth or being good enough. And I am just so curious how this vulnerability that you're showing and modeling and the actual movement, why this combination is working so well. What have you
Hmm.
found?
Yeah, such a great question. What I have found, the transformation, there's so much transformation. And the reason it works is because we are tapping into emotions that are stuck, that we have a story about. It's like
Mm,
a shame story or a trauma story, which is real. And I'm not validating those life experiences. But
mhm,
when we have an opportunity to reconnect to those emotions that are like just living in us with a story that we have attached to it, but now we have an opportunity to bring it back up again, look at it in an objective, a little bit wiser way, and in a safe container. Then what happens is we name the emotion, and then we put this gesture to it, which is very, very creative, which is sort of like shifting the mindset. Like, oh, I thought this fear or this trauma was supposed to hold me back. This is
hmm,
something I'm working on. Oh, it's this negative thing. But wait a minute, I'm turning that into something beautiful. I'm
hmm,
actually shifting the story, right? I'm not taking it away. It's what it was. I'm going to honor that, but I'm going to transform it into something beautiful, right? So we look at the emotion, we put a gesture to it, like let's say shame, and this is just an example, right? So shame, but how beautiful is this? So let's talk about this, right?
mhm,
Then putting music to it. So we have this artistic expression, right, of the gesture. Then you
mhm,
put the music on with it, and you know better than anybody that like music is this gateway to our soul. It's just
mhm,
it helps us come alive. So all of a sudden we're pairing another artistic moving element. So you've got the gesture, the art of the gesture, you've got the music coming in, your body responds. It just does. There's no way.
mhm.
I mean, I guess it can't, but I haven't experienced that yet, right?
Okay.
The emotion comes up and it's like, oh my gosh. And so what happens is, I think we shift our mindset about what we think something is, and all of a sudden, a new perspective comes in and says, hang on a second. This is supposed to serve you. This is beautiful. And it was painful, or it is painful, but it can also serve you. Let's look at it from that perspective. So I think the short of everything that I just said is, I think this practice gives us an opportunity to shift our perspective about how we feel, the stories that we place on the emotions that we have.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
It
Yeah.
does make sense. And I think it's interesting, especially you just said how we feel, because I recall in our session, it wasn't just about emotionally. You also asked me about physical sensations. And so
Right.
based on those physical sensations, and I'm doing these wiggly things, and I think that was one of my movements, because that was a physical sensation that came up quite often. And it's really
Yeah.
reminding me of some things that I've read about somatic therapy. I don't know if this is something that you have either studied or taken part of and consciously are weaving into this practice, or is this kind of in the ethers and it's just coming together in that way?
It's in the ethers and it's coming together. But
Wow, that's
I
cool.
have to tell you that I've done some work, especially recently, with somatic therapists that are actually like
Okay.
trained, and they say to me, Jen, this is somatic movement, this is
Yeah.
somatic therapy. And I'm
Uh-huh.
like, oh my gosh, do I need to go get a degree?
No, no, but it's good that you know. And I mean, it was exactly what my therapist would have walked me through, which I don't think that I was seeing this person when we had our time together. But looking back, this was exactly the steps, talking and then, okay, so what are you feeling? What like physical sensations are you feeling in your body? Where? And all that. And it was part of it. And there's just something about it, and especially adding gesture. And I say for me, somebody who's really, like I said, movement shy.
I just want to say, first of all, that your movement was so beautiful. Like, what I love about working with non dancers is to show them that you actually are a dancer in your own right. Like, I do believe, especially as women, we have this natural fluidity that just flows within us. And so
Mm,
society says train dancer, and this makes you a dancer, possibly, right? But in my opinion, I just feel like we're all dancers, you know? How do you dance? And you can just dance if it is your hands, if it's your
mm,
hands and they're moving like this and you're feeling this is dance to me. And so your gestures were incredibly beautiful. And so I think you're a dancer and I think your movement was
okay.
amazing. I want to also just add on to something.
Mm-hmm.
You asked me, why do I think that it works too?
Mm-hmm.
And the other piece to this is, I love witnessing others, right? It's
Mm,
just like I love holding space for people that are willing to be vulnerable, that are kind of scared, but I'm going to validate you till the ends of the earth. And I think it's very powerful to be witnessed. And
mm,
so when you're being witnessed by someone who cares so much, which I do, it's transformative. I think when you allow yourself to really be vulnerable and go to places that you never thought you could, and really go there and then feel validated, seen, heard, held, all those things, I think that alone, creates some transformation and a new path forward for some people.
mm.
The other thing is about witnessing, and you experience this, and I'd love to hear from you about this, having those videos done that I do, right? I
Mm-hmm.
do the power of gesture outside of the videos with all the stuff, but that I curate the videos with the power of gesture and the storytelling in that way. That gives a woman like yourself an opportunity to witness yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of a sudden you're witnessing yourself and saying, oh my God, like I'm kind of awesome.
Yeah, yeah. There is something to that. And then also it keeps going, right? So you're acting as the witness and then literally giving us a reflection with the video, but then having these group events where you're highlighting and honoring some of those stories with egads of people to witness. And
Yeah,
that is wow, that's a beautiful thing. What is some of the feedback you've been getting? I have yet to go because of our time difference.
I know. Oh,
But
you're talking about the galleries or the
yes, the
workshops that I
galleries,
do?
the
Oh
galleries
my,
specifically.
oh, that's, The galleries are incredible. So, as you know, I feature 3 women and their stories, that at the heart of these stories are the power of gesture and using that to help tell their stories, right? And so these beautiful pieces of art are shown. And what happens, the audience, right, the guests that are watching, it is so incredible because they see themselves. These are just regular people, that have a story to tell and how they've overcome some of these situations in their life. And so the guests, number one, the relatability. It's like, oh my gosh, I went through that too. Thank you for opening the conversation. There is this, oh my gosh, you can make a piece of art out of your trauma. I never thought I could do something like that, right? So the guests are just like, wow, and then they begin to open up, and the conversations that happen are amazing. But I'll tell you this one specific example, which really moved me so much. This was a couple galleries ago. And one of the stories that was featured was a woman who was sexually assaulted when she was a teenager. And she's now an adult. She's overcome and she's on the other side. And the whole story is about her journey. And one of the guests said to her, "Thank you so much for sharing your story. My daughter, who's 15, was sexually assaulted last year, and I have not yet been able to relate or understand. It's been very hard for me." And she said, listening to your story, I get it now. I get it. And I can't wait to go and talk to my daughter. And I literally started bawling because I was like, oh my gosh, this is not just about the guests in the room feeling something about their own stories and things being revealed and unlocked and all that. It's about other people, as like the daughters and the sons and the relatives and the friendship, like so it was like a domino effect. It was just amazing to me, the power that the work has. So that was amazing. And there has been so much feedback just about how people have not really seen this form of storytelling before, this form of somatic wellness, and the constant through line is really how unique it is, and really just how joyful it can be. Like we can actually find joy inside of that pain and rename it and make it something that will serve us instead of hold us back.
Oh my God, I love this so much. There's so much beautiful science around how people are connected through their hormones when we're sharing our stories. You just described it about this woman and her daughter, about how it just really allows us to just empathize with each other in a very special way. What I'm thinking about also was in your story, a big turning point for you when you got this therapist who introduced you to different types of intelligences. And so I would love to hear more about this. And if you could share with us about the different types of intelligences and how you were able to step into this new way of sharing yourself with the world.
Yeah, well, I have to tell you, I can't speak to all of them because
It's
one
okay.
of them really spoke to me, and then I just went with it. So it's kinesthetic learning, and there's Howard Gardner wrote this book about the multiple intelligences, and I believe there were like 8 of them. We could look them up real quick if you want, but the one that really resonated with me, because I found, let me go back for a second. I really struggled in school. And I just didn't understand like how things were being presented just by the book, the black and white on the pages. It just didn't. I needed visuals. I needed like graphs, and whenever I could sing the words to a history lesson, I could remember it. And so things like that, the information was just not taught that way. And it still isn't. And we still spend so much time on standardized testing, and these poor children who are kinetic learners, and they are not seen, held, heard, validated, all the things. And it really gets to me. That's why National Dance Institute, when I worked for them for so long, that really spoke to me, because that's exactly how we served curriculum, was through the arts. And a lot of children need that. A lot of adults need that, but it is not talked about nearly enough. Anyhow, so I was in a lot of shame. I was in a lot of pain and disconnection for many, many years. It was very, very painful for me. And
Mm.
then I found a therapist who I started talking to about this, and she recommended this woman who was a professor and a beautiful psychologist, and she was just incredible, changed my life. I went to her and explained where I was, and this was in my 20s. So I
Mm.
really dealt with this for a really long time. It was my pain. It really held me back in so many ways. And I have some crazy stories about that. But anyhow, so when I met her, we did all this testing and evaluation. She just wanted to understand how I learn. And
Mm-hmm.
she reflected back to me after she gathered and did all the research based on the tests that I took. She said, "You are so brilliant.
Mm.
You are so smart." And it was like the first time anyone told me that I was really
Mm.
smart. And she said, "You are a kinetic learner. That's all. You learn, you absorb, you hold on to information kinesthetically with your body." And I was like, oh my gosh, that makes sense because movement has saved me. It's the only thing that has saved me. But I just thought, oh, I'm a
Mm.
dancer. Oh, I'm this or that. But really, it was teaching me how to connect and communicate with the world. And so then I said, okay, I want to start from the very beginning. I need to
Mm-hmm.
understand politically, like how the world works. I mean, I
Mm.
literally went there and we worked together for 5.5 years. And
Wow.
I met with her every week. And I had her take me back to the very beginning and lay out information in a very visual way so I could see it, colors, shapes, graphs, all of it.
Mm.
And from, our healthcare system to our political system to just, culture, just all of it. I wanted to understand, and nothing was staying in my body. And
Okay.
this way of teaching really helped me. It was
Okay.
incredible. I would take newspaper articles and cut them out and paste them onto boards. We created maps and
Okay.
timelines.
Okay. I was wondering what that looked like. And so what does that look like for you now? Like when you're presented with something new, um, do you still go through this process, or is it now just like you naturally like or gravitate towards a more graphic way of gathering information?
Yeah, well, it's a combination of both. It really
Okay.
depends. Like I literally have to draw out some things when people
Mm-hmm.
are explaining.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it really helps me. I will say to my people that I really love and I want to know their life, I need to actually make like a family tree to
Okay.
understand who's connected to them and how they're connected, you know. So so yes and yes to both of the ways. Yes, I've trained my brain to automatically see visuals and I compartmentalize in a way when information is coming in. So I
Okay.
can see it laid out in different graphs and different pictures. Um, but that doesn't always work because it might be too much information. And then
Okay.
I need to just pause and actually map it out. And it took me a long time. She taught me, see, I had her and then I had my therapist working hand in hand. And my
Okay.
therapist helped me understand the power of my silence
Hmm.
and that it's okay not to have the opinion. I'm just taking it all in. I want to take it in. I want to learn. I don't have to spit it back out in some
Hmm.
articulate way for people to think I'm smart. I
Mm-hmm.
know I'm smart, but
Mm-hmm.
it took me a long time to really understand my intelligence, become comfortable with it, have confidence around it. It took a lot of work, but I can confidently say now, I feel smart. I know my intelligence. I feel amazing. Do I get insecure sometimes? Absolutely. But there is a way. There is a
Mm-hmm.
way through this. And I think there are many, many people that um, share that experience and don't really understand it. And
Yeah.
so the power of gesture also helps us understand our emotions
Mm-hmm.
and putting it with movement. It helps us understand the world. It can help us make sense of things.
Yeah. Yeah. So When you're in these moments of learning about yourself, right? And you're
Yeah.
coming from thinking, I can't do this, and you're on the journey, but you're still doing things. You're still connecting and working with children. And even though the power of gesture came to fruition in the pandemic, it sounds like this is like a life journey. So,
Yes.
what are some tips for being able to find tiny nuggets of confidence when you're navigating these rough areas?
I feel emotional when you're talking
Yeah.
about this. What's coming to me is to really listen,
Hmm.
to really listen. I listened and I didn't know for sure where I was going, but I trusted. I
Hmm.
just trusted and I really paid attention. Like I listened to my intuition. And I allowed
Hmm.
myself to follow that voice. We know, our bodies know. We get anxious, there's a reason. We just have to pay attention to the voice inside of us. So I would say a lot of times there's so much noise that gets in the way.
Hmm.
And so I would say that's the biggest thing for me. That was kind of the only thing I had because nobody out there in the world was telling me anything until in my 20s when I met these two people, except for my mother. My mother, which is
Okay.
huge. My mother always said, "You have the greatest intuition of anybody I've ever met in my life.
Mm.
You need to follow it always." I mean, she was always my advocate, specifically about my intuition, specifically about it. And yeah, I
Okay.
didn't have great grades like my brothers. They were really great in school. I wasn't. Um, so she celebrated them in different ways. And she always said, "You have a voice inside of you that is so wildly intuitive and so right on. Just keep following it, keep following it." So if you have that person helping you believe
Hmm.
in yourself in that way, that's
Hmm.
huge. If you don't, you've got to rely on yourself. And I've had to many, 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 many times. And it always lands right. So I would say that's the biggest. And then the second thing I would say is it's so much easier said than done. But just knowing that you're going to be okay, like finding the courage to step into the questions that
Hmm.
make you feel vulnerable. I did not realize the power of vulnerability until later, until I really started to just be vulnerable with all of this and the work that I'm doing now. But if someone can own their vulnerability and know they're going to be okay, like just try it, step in a little to be curious about the things that are holding them back,
Hmm.
there's going to be answers on the other side. There are going to be answers. And there's going to be people that experience the same things. So you also find community, like you're not alone. So
Hmm.
taking a risk, right, with courage and vulnerability and listening to your intuition.
Oh my God. Yes. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Jen, where can we find you? Where can we get information about what you're doing, about the galleries, about your workshops?
My website, which is www.jen, Aks.com. So a lot of things are there. On Instagram, same at Jen_Aks. There's
Hmm.
that. And then on Facebook, which I don't post too much, but her stories underscore told is where you can find me there. And then always reach out, email, sell, it's on my website, how to contact me, email me and find out because I want to spread this work. I want to work with any human that is willing to try because I think it speaks to so many souls. Yeah, I just love it. So, and there are some programs that I'm doing now, which is really exciting for women and for teenagers. So I'm very, very excited about that. All that stuff is on my website.
Nice. Are these programs, are they online or in person?
Both.
Both. Cool.
Yeah. So I do group workshops with women and I do workshops with teenagers and I go to places, people will have me come or I'll do them virtually myself. I'm doing both. And a
Wow.
lot of one-on-ones, which is really amazing to use the power of gesture as a way to access emotions regularly, weekly, monthly, whatever it is, to just kind of, it's an alternative. It's another tool for your toolkit. There's meditation, and there's Pilates and yoga and dance, and then there's the power of gesture.
No, I love it. I love it. Listen, thank you so much. I encourage everyone to check out Jen's work. And like I said, I participated myself. I loved it. It's transformative and healing, and you do such a beautiful job of creating just a beautiful and sacred, welcoming space. And I did it online, so
Yeah, most people have.
yeah.
It was beautiful. You got it. If you're watching or listening, you've got to check out her story. I mean, I just love it. I could just watch it and watch it and watch it. It's so beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right. The Courageous Voice podcast is a collaboration between Connect.Faith and me, Shanda Rule. Music is by Ike Sturm and production by Jess Burchett. Thanks for listening.